Good afternoon. This is a public hearing required by law and authorized by the New York Power Authority's Board of Trustees on the proposed form of contracts for the sale of hydropower to the host communities, Tuscarora Nation, and Niagara University. My name is Felisa Hockleiser, and I'm the authority's Deputy Corporate Secretary. New York State Public Authorities Law, Section 1009, sets forth procedures for executing certain contracts negotiated by the authority. First, prior to the hearing, it requires that notice of the hearing be provided. Therefore, a notice was sent to the governor, the Speaker of the Assembly, the Chair of the Senate Finance Committee, the Chair of the Assembly Ways and Means Committee, the Senate Minority Leader, the Ranking Minority Leader of Assembly Ways and Means, and the President Pro Tempore and Majority Leader. In addition, notices appeared once a week for the 4 weeks leading up to this hearing in the following newspapers: Niagara Gazette, Buffalo News, Buffalo Business First, Niagara County Tribune Sentinel Lewiston, Albany Times-Union, and Dunkirk Observer. The public was also given access to the proposed contract on the authority's website during the 30-day period prior to today's hearing. After the hearing, the public will be given access to the hearing transcript once it is completed at www.nipa.gov. The next step in the process set forth in Section 1009 will be for the NYPA trustees to reconsider their proposed contract in light of public comments. Once the trustees have completed their final review, the contract will be forwarded to the governor for her consideration and approval. If you plan to make an oral statement at this hearing, I ask that you please indicate so on the sign-in sheet. Also, if you have a written statement, you can mail or email the corporate secretary at 123 Main Street at 9B, Boy, White Plains, New York, 10601, or secretaries.office@nipa.gov. That's secretaries.office@nipa.gov. Written statements may be of any length and will appear on the record of the hearing in addition to oral statements. The record of the hearing will remain open for additional comments through close of business Thursday, July 24th, 2025. At this point, I would like to introduce Emily Alkowitz, Director, Power Contracts and Tariffs, who will provide additional details on the proposed customer contracts. Thank you. Ms. Alkowitz?
Thank you, Ms. Hochheiser. As mentioned, my name is Emily Alkowitz. I'm the Director of Power Contracts and Tariffs within NYPA's Customer Solutions Department. I'm here today to present a summary of the proposed contracts for the 7 host communities, including the City of Niagara Falls, the City of Niagara Falls School District, Lewiston Porter Central School District, Niagara County, Niagara Wheatfield Central School District, Town of Lewiston, and Town of Niagara, as well as proposed contracts for the Tuscarora Nation and Niagara University. As part of the relicensing process for the Niagara Power Project that replaced the first 50-year license, which expired on August 31st, 2007, with a new 50-year license from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, also referenced as FERC, the authority endeavored to obtain support of the entities surrounding the Niagara Power Project, in particular the host communities, Tuscarora Nation and Niagara University. The authority filed an offer of settlement with FERC in 2005 that in part included separate settlement agreements with the host communities, Tuscarora Nation and Niagara University, settling all issues raised by the entities during the relicensing process, in which exchange for supporting the authority's relicensing efforts received certain commitments and benefits from the authority. Each of the settlement agreements, namely the host community relicensing settlement agreement addressing non-licensed terms and conditions, abbreviated for this hearing as HCRSA, the relicensing settlement agreement between the Power Authority of the State of New York and the Tuscarora Nation, abbreviated for this hearing as TNRSA, the Niagara University relicensing settlement agreement, abbreviated for this hearing as NURSA, included the right to a power allocation from the Niagara Power Project for the term of the license, along with contracts that implement those allocations. The HCRSA has a 25 megawatt allocation that could conditionally increase to 28 megawatts to be allotted to the following parties as follows: the City of Niagara Falls for 5.5 megawatts, the City of Niagara Falls School District for 3.5 megawatts, Lewiston Porter Central School District for 1.5 megawatts, Niagara County for 9 megawatts, Niagara Wheatfield Central School District for 1.5 megawatts, the Town of Lewiston for 3.5 megawatts that could conditionally increase to 6.5 megawatts, and the town of Niagara for 500 kW. The condition was met that allowed the allocation to increase to 28 megawatts, as mentioned, the 3 megawatt increase for the town of Lewiston. The TNRSA has a 1 megawatt allocation, and the NURSA has up to a 3 megawatt allocation. All the power sales agreements associated with the allocations mentioned previously expire on September 1st, 2025. At their May 20th, 2025 meeting, the NYPA Board of Trustees approved the initial updated form of the contract for hydropower and energy for each host community at the applicable preference power rate as provided for in the host community contracts and the authority service tariff number HC-1. For Tuscarora Nation at the applicable preference power rate as provided for in the Tuscarora Nation contract and the authority service tariff number TN-1. And for Niagara University at the applicable Western New York Power Program rate as provided for in the Niagara University contract and authority service tariff number NP-1. The trustees also provided authorization for this public hearing in accordance with the Public Authorities Law, PAL 1009, on a proposed form of the contract for the host communities contracts, the Tuscarora Nation contract, and the Niagara University contract. The host communities contracts will continue to allot the 28 megawatt allocation the same as the current agreements. The Tuscarora Nation contract will continue the 1 megawatt allocation it has now, and the Niagara University contract will continue the up to 3 megawatt allocation it has in place. The host communities and the Tuscarora Nation will continue to pay the same rate applicable to preference power customers, plus any applicable New York Independent System Operator, Inc., also known as NYSO, charges. Niagara University will continue to pay Western New York program rates, plus any NYSO charges. The authority is not the load-serving entity for any of the host communities, Tuscarora Nation or Niagara University, and none of the proposed contracts have ancillary services or green renewable attributes included in the allocations. The following is a summary of pertinent provisions in the proposed contracts for the host communities in the Tuscarora Nation. The contracts continue to provide the option to have a portion of all or some of the energy allocations sold into the NYSO administered market. Any revenue, which may be in the form of an energy credit from such sales into the NYSO administered market, may be used for energy related expenses or costs. The contracts have been updated to include hydropower curtailment and substitute energy provisions when adverse water conditions impact the Niagara Power Project's ability to meet its firm energy obligations, which are currently applicable to, though not enumerated in the current agreements. The contracts were made to reflect NYPA's current preference rate methodology, including credits for the sale of excess unforced capacity in the development of the rate, as well as provisions that contemplate revisions to the rate methodology done in accordance with state rulemaking processes. Relatedly, the contracts continue to provide unforced capacity only applicable to the authority's physical deliveries and provide that the transmission and delivery of power and energy are the responsibility of the host communities and the Tuscarora Nation. The contracts provide flexibility, allowing once annually a pause and or recommencement of electric service related to allocations upon 90 days written notice. Each proposed contract has a 16-year term ending in September 1st, 2041. The following is a summary of pertinent provisions in the proposed contract for Niagara University. Provisions allow the authority to monitor the local utility meter or meters to determine if there has been any impermissible resale of excess power, as well as the application of a true-up mechanism to assess what monies may be owed back to the authority if such a scenario occurs, along with the obligation to pay those monies back to the authority. The contract has been updated to include hydropower curtailment and substitute energy provisions when adverse water conditions impact the Niagara Power Project's ability to meet its firm energy obligations, which are currently applicable to, though not enumerated in the current agreement. The contract continues to provide that the transmission and delivery of power and energy are the responsibility of Niagara University. The contract provides flexibility by allowing once annually a pause and/or recommencement of electric service related to the allocations upon 90 days written notice. The proposed contract has a 16-year term extending to September 1st, 2041. As Ms. Hotchheiser stated earlier, the authority will accept your comments on the proposed contracts until the close of business on Thursday, July 24th, 2025. I will now turn the hearing back to Ms. Hotchheiser to welcome the speakers.
Thank you, Ms. Alkowitz. I will now call on speakers who have signed in. Mr. Thomas Burgesser and Mr. Scott Hateman, please state your names and affiliations for the record prior to giving your statement.
You want me to move, right?
You can stay there.
Okay.
The whole room is.
Okay. My name is R. Thomas Burgesser. I'm an assistant county attorney for Niagara County, and I do represent them, but in this particular case, we are the representative for the host communities, the 7 host communities, in preparing the statement that's being made today at this public hearing. We're speaking today towards a proposed renewal agreement presented by NYPA as to the low-cost power allocations for the host communities in Niagara County. NYPA in their proposal, and specifically in their kickoff letter, said they are merely eliminating terms and language that are no longer pertinent, adding language to clarify current practices, and responsibilities, and make current processes simpler, and everything else stayed the same. During the initial meeting on March 25th, 2025, this limited scope was reiterated. The negotiation process began at the initial meeting of March 25th, 2025, where several concerns were made known along with proposals for certain sections. The host communities submitted written questions and proposals on the provisions of the proposed agreement to NYPA on July 1st, 2025. During the meeting that was held on July 8th, 2025, additional concerns were raised by the host communities that the proposed renewal agreement would curtail certain rights and benefits of the host communities while granting additional rights and benefits to NYPA. For example, the original power sales agreement bound NYPA to a detailed methodology for determining the rate of low-cost power. The renewal agreement permits NYPA the ability to amend the methodology in a way not yet detailed. Moreover, certain remedies available to the host communities under the original agreement have been stricken from the proposed renewal agreement. NYPA provided their written response to the host community's written submissions on July 21st, 2025. A preliminary review identified areas that need further discussions before a new agreement can be reached. Their response also needs to be brought before the individual host communities for their approval. Sufficient time is needed to complete all the above. For the benefit of all involved parties, a copy of the host community submission of July 1st, 2025 is attached and made a part of this statement as if set forth fully here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Burgesser. Is there anyone else who wanted to make a statement? Okay. Having heard all the speakers who signed in to speak, I'm sorry?
We have one other statement.
Okay.
Unekakuane twa skana ika skarura accessora akwa yatha hakera chakwa suhaha disna lada epa ne uchatna. Unekakuane. Greetings. My name is Tim McKee, Tuscarora Nation Deer Clan. Tuscarora Nation issues a statement to the New York Power Authority regarding the draft 2025 agreement for the sale of hydropower and electricity. Tuscarora Nation understands NYPA's intent for host communities and other parties to agree to NYPA's proposed terms of the agreement. However, the Tuscarora Nation is the only sovereign Indian nation involved in this process, and such requests NYPA to uphold its commitment to our government-to-government relationship. The Tuscarora Nation has specific concerns regarding some of the proposed terms, and will discuss those concerns with NIPA within the government-to-government framework, which is a separate process from the public hearing process. By this statement, the Tuscarora Nation does not waive its sovereign immunity or its jurisdiction over the territory and citizens. The Tuscarora Nation looks forward to our further collaboration. Ona.
Thank you. Ms. Alquist, is there anyone else in the room who wants to make a statement?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Having heard all the speakers who signed in to speak, we will recess and reconvene when additional speakers arrive. Okay, I believe we're back on the record. It is now 6 p.m. As I previously stated, the record of the hearing will remain open for additional comments through close of business Thursday, July 24th, 2025. The July 23rd, 2025 public hearing on the proposed contracts for the sale of hydropower to the host communities, Tuscarora Nation, and Niagara University is now officially closed. Thank you and good night.